Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Evolving Women. We're so glad you're here. I am especially glad to have Veronica Shears here today. Hi, Veronica. Welcome, welcome. Veronica is a certified end of life doula, a death educator, and she has 40 years experience as a nurse. So, welcome, Veronica. I know you have some important information that you would like to share with us today. So, I'm going to turn it right over to you.
So the biggest um, information that I have is how empowering it is for women to make their own choices as they're approaching end of life. Not even end of life, as
Mm.
they're approaching their day-to-day life. It is best to have your advance directive written. The 16th of April was Advanced Directive Day.
Mm.
And the so that it revolves around death and taxes. And the 20th of April is National End of Life Doula Day. And so
Mm.
that's when we're recording. I'm sure it'll get
Yes, it
put
is
up wherever it
today.
does. But what I've learned as a doula and now grieving wife, widow, um, is that it needs to be in writing and it needs to be done sooner rather than later. My husband and I had talked about our advanced directives. I was trained at a school that wanted you to write your advanced directive and you couldn't graduate until you did, and have that so-called difficult conversation with your family about what your wishes are. It may seem to be a difficult discussion, and you can always call a doula, an end of life doula, to step in with you and help explain to your family why you're making the choices that you're making. But they're all the important choices for you. So that my husband died at 57. If I hadn't been given that conversation starter to have taken up with him. So at 55, he was a full code. He wanted everything done. Just do it all.
Mm.
He'd been saved 7 times before. Yeah.
Wow.
And and 2 months ago, he came to me and he said, "You know what? I don't want to be resuscitated." And I said, "Really?" He said, "No, my life isn't like it was 2 years
Mm.
ago. And
No.
I've lived my life and I don't
Mm.
need to be resuscitated." Well, come to find out, he died right in front of my eyes, not more than 2 months later.
Wow.
And I had those discussions to be able to tell the paramedics and the EMT and the ER that although he's only 57, because when somebody sees a 57-year-old coming into the ER, trust you me, all they want to do is save a life.
Hmm.
And I could see all of the mess that would be coming ahead. Um, and mostly because he just didn't want that. And I was able to get past the security guard who said, "You can't come this way." And the
Mm.
ambulance attendant said, "She's with me." And then the nurse guard that said, "You can't come this way." And the ambulance attendant said, "She's with me."
Oh,
And at the
wow.
foot of the bed, with the big, huge crash cart open and the intubation tray all
Mm.
ready to go to town on this 57-year-old, I could say, "Stop. This
Mm.
isn't what he wants."
Hmm. Wow.
By the time he had gotten to the ER, the right side of his face was drooping. He could not move his right arm or his right leg. By 8 o'clock in the morning, there was enough blood in his, um, think, Veronica? In his skull. I could see it and not not find the word. Enough blood in his skull that he had moved his brain from midline to the left. That's a really bad sign.
Wow.
And so by 4:20 in the morning, he had passed.
Hmm.
So to me, it went well. It went like it should. Yes, it was sudden, but I was very, very blessed that they were able to help with that and honor my wishes.
Mm, I
And that's
love
the
that.
most important part. So you're at a point, your advance directive is used when you cannot say what your wishes are. If you are awake at all, they will attempt to get you to say, to change your mind.
Mm,
So a friend of mine had her mom, she was with her mom and was in the hospital, and the doctor kept asking her, can we do this? Can we do this? And and the daughter is saying no. And the doctor says, you can't say, she has to say. But they were getting really, really pushy.
mm,
And it was really difficult for the daughter to get the wishes met
wow.
because her mom was of the era that you do whatever the doctor tells you to do,
Hmm.
and so she was going to give up on what her own wishes were uh, to give over to the doctor,
Right, right.
thinking he knew, when in fact he had no idea of her quality of life. So that's the biggest thing to look at when you're writing your advance directive is what will your quality of life be? If you're going into writing this document and you're 80 years old and you're still wanting CPR done, realize that within the first 5 compressions, they've probably fractured a rib that
Mm,
could pierce your lung or whatever other damage it can do. Surviving after CPR attempts at 80 years old and a full code attempt at 80 years old is only about 10 to 20%.
wow.
And to me, that's not really good odds.
Right.
And the longer you go without the oxygen, the more damage is done to the brain. And if you were happy sitting in your chair watching TV, that's a good thing because that might be all you get when
Mm.
you're done.
And,
Um,
and I do want to just, can I just insert just real quick? I'm sorry to interrupt, but the advance directive, I want to make sure everybody's clear on that. That is a pre-written or filled out form
right,
where you are expressing your wishes for a time when you can no longer express those wishes. And
right.
with that advance directive, then the doctors or the people around the staff needs to honor that directive, correct?
Unfortunately, no.
Oh,
So,
okay.
so the advance directive was actually made so that we wouldn't sue the doctor
Oh,
if they did what our wishes were. But
oh,
it's not a legal
hmm.
document. So to get a legal document, it's called a POLST, POLST, or a MOLST. Um, the POLST stands for physician ordered um, life sustaining termination. And
Yeah, I've
there is
never,
one
never heard of
that's
that one.
called that. Well, so when you hit, it's not something that's routinely written by your primary care doc. It's mostly written when you've hit a terminal diagnosis.
Oh,
But you can ask your primary care doc for it when you're like my parents could ask for one. My dad is 91, my mom is 88. They could get a pulsed order written by the doctor. And that way, if the ambulance comes to your house, they're not doing CPR. because they see that pink form on your refrigerator.
Well, how is that different from a DNR, do not resuscitate form?
The DNR is the advanced directive.
Oh, that they're one and the same. Oh, I thought
Yeah.
they were two different documents.
No, they're the same. They're one
Okay.
and the same. And so in your advanced directive, you say if you don't want to be intubated or you don't want to be resuscitated. So a DNR
Hmm.
is do not resuscitate.
Right.
That means no attempts at CPR. A DNI, which is in the next square, is do not intubate. So you
Hmm.
can you wouldn't get very far to just attempt a resuscitation with mouth to mouth.
Mm-hmm.
And they would try and put a tube in so that you could get a better oxygen delivery.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, if you get the tube in and then days later you need to have it taken out, it's an act of God and all those kind of things to get
Yes,
it
yes,
done.
my dad experienced that. And these are difficult things to hear you talk about, like do not resuscitate, advance directive, physician ordered life
Yeah,
sustaining. Like those are like almost painful words to hear. But as you're saying, deal with it, get more comfortable with it when you can, because
right.
when you need it, it's too late.
In a crisis,
Hmm.
in a crisis, if there's no answers, they're going for save at all cost.
Right. And your emotions get in the way when
Oh
things are
yeah.
happening and playing out. And we don't think well through emotions.
Oh, in a crisis with emotions
Hmm.
combined, yeah,
Right,
yeah.
right.
Common logical
Unless you're a
thought
train,
is
unless you're a
gone.
trained professional,
Well,
such as
yeah.
yourself.
I was very blessed that I could be, yeah, it was one of those situations that I was more a nurse at the bedside than I was the wife.
Oh, so you went into that default role, it
Yeah.
sounds
Yeah.
like.
I have to
Hmm.
say, I really have to
Wow.
say.
And I
Um,
know you were more prepared than the average person because your role as the death doula,
yeah,
life doula, whichever, way you want to say it, and your nursing experience. I said the majority of us do not have any of those
right.
hats or that type of information or that type of experience. So to hear it come from you that this needs to be done, as
Mm,
uncomfortable as it is for
right,
ourselves and for those in our lives who we love.
right. Because nothing is more heartbreaking than my teacher tells a story about being at a bedside. The daughter heard one thing, the son heard another
Oh
thing
man.
about putting in a feeding tube. And so they decided to put in the feeding tube, and the mom was awake enough to try and indicate that she didn't want to be fed. And every time the nurse would come to feed her, she would flick her head and she'd get
Hmm.
all agitated about it. And it ended up being a situation that tore the brother and sister apart
Oh man.
because of this ordeal. So, we have enough things in our lives that make family estranged from each other.
Right,
Let's
right,
not make the end of our life like that too.
right. Oh,
Let's
that's
make it a,
such a
you
good
know,
point.
and
And these conversations help
right.
everyone get on the same page.
Yeah. Yeah. And so a whole family can sit down and write it all together because at age 18, the parents no longer have a say in their children's end of life
Mm,
unless
mm,
it's been discussed with them. So it's now on the top of the list when your kids go away to college
good
that you
idea.
have this written and that you are the person, the parent is the person to be called. because
Wow.
HIPAA will say, no, there's no person by that name at this hospital.
Hmm.
And your kid could be there and you know
Right.
they're there.
Yeah, that's a
And
really good
yeah,
time to do that. I never had thought of that.
yeah.
So,
It's gotten really, really strict with the HIPAA part of it, that we make sure that it gets done. And like I said, you know, it shocked my kids because at the time, I think my sons were 33 and 36 when I had the discussion with them.
mhm,
And it's like, Mom, we don't want to talk about this. I said, I'm sorry. This is important. I
mhm,
need to tell you what my wishes are. And one of my biggest wishes is to not be in pain. So I want to have proper pain medicine. I don't want my pain higher than a 2. The
mm,
standard is at the hospital is a 4. Well, I'm sorry. If I'm uncomfortable and I can't tell you and you're letting my pain go to a 4, no,
mm. Wow.
no, I want my pain controlled at a level of 2.
So it sounds like you can get as specific as you want and as you can
Yeah,
in
yeah.
this document or in these discussions.
Right, right. And you can say, if I get pneumonia, I'm 95 years old, I get pneumonia. My pneumonia can be cured with some antibiotics and me being intubated for a few days. You can say, intubate me for 10 days.
Mhm,
If I'm not well, take the tube out and I go to heaven.
mhm.
So you
Wow.
can stipulate things like that. You know, if my kidney disease is so advanced that I'm ready for dialysis, no, I don't want that. Put
Hmm.
that down. Let
Wow.
people know. That's something that the doctor needs to know so that you can discuss it with them before anything happens. Now,
Mhm.
I'm really lucky my PCP is already talking to us about that. And I'm 68. And she did ask my husband, and he had said he was a full code. And
Hmm.
yeah, and that changed.
Wow. And it's something that can be revisited at
It
every
should be.
age,
Yeah.
at college,
So,
midlife, in the 30s, as you go through life,
right.
it doesn't have to be a one-time thing because
Yeah.
as you said, things change. Your
Right.
feelings about certain things change,
Yeah.
circumstances change.
Right.
So just
Definitely.
because you did it once doesn't mean it's good forever.
Well, and so the national average is that 78% think that it's important to do. Only 32% have done them,
Mm,
and only
wow.
2% can remember where they put them.
Oh man.
Yeah. So that's even bigger. And the thing is, you can't put it in your lockbox at the bank because you don't have access to it that way.
Right,
You
right.
need to have it in another safely stored place so that your family has access to it.
Or multiple copies given to
Right.
multiple family members.
Excellent. Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
And just
And,
this,
for yeah,
go
for
ahead.
shits and giggles, put it on your phone. Take
Hmm.
pictures of it and put it on
Well,
your
that's an
phone.
idea.
I haven't looked in the medical section on my phone lately to see if it's there, but think technology has gotten so good, I wouldn't be surprised if you couldn't just put a picture of it on your medical part.
Yeah, that's a
On
good
your phone.
idea. And just having this discussion with you now, I mean, we've done some of this stuff because I learned through experience with
Mhm.
parents, in-laws, like these things are important. I just remember, I had an aunt who actually started the ball rolling for us. Her husband died suddenly, and she had everything prepared in advance. Her and him had made decisions. They had set up, a cemetery thing, like everything was taken care of. And she just kept saying how thrilled she was that it was stuff that was taken care of. She didn't have to think about it when emotions were high in that situation. So that kind of started the ball rolling for us and our family.
Yeah.
And but now I feel like I need to revisit this because
Mhm.
that was what, 10, 12, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
maybe now we need to go in and update everything and give new
Right.
copies and talk to my adult children about getting their documents in place because I know they don't.
And so like Teresa said, I'm like the aunt. I had made those arrangements for my husband and I. And so I'd already done all the funeral arrangements. We knew what was going to happen and who was going to take care of it. And so it was just it was seamless because
Hmm.
had already been taken care of. All it required was signing a piece of paper to say,
Hmm.
yes, this is paid in full. So if you get it young enough, your funeral plan, it freezes at the time that you make your arrangements. So in September in California, all the funeral situations here went up by a significant amount. So I took care of a patient that had gotten her arrangements made when she was 50 years old.
Hmm.
She died when she was 96. You know how much she paid for her funeral arrangements? $50.
No way.
And they had to honor everything.
Wow.
Yeah.
Because it was whatever purchase price you
Right. Yep.
pay, that's
It's
it. You
frozen.
never have to go back in
Nope.
and give them more. And that's,
And if you get your policy, if you're healthy and you get your policy, you're pre-planning, you make all the arrangements. You pay it in installments,
hmm.
boom, boom, boom. I can't remember what the interest rate. I don't think there was one. Nothing that I paid too much attention to. Um, but if you've had your policy for 2 years, they will, they will honor your policy if you should pass after those 2 years. So Peter had only paid 5 years on his policy, and the policy was paid in full.
Mm.
And so, yeah, that was a beautiful thing.
Yeah. And it's just taken a layer of stress off of the family in
Yeah,
general, the spouse, whoever.
yeah,
And it's just less they have to think about and worry about, and they can focus on more important things, such as celebrating your life and,
right.
that, and just turning it all over to somebody else.
Yeah.
So, this idea of being proactive is very, very important. So, I
Well,
totally agree with you, and I
yeah.
appreciate you getting the message out to people. And I know this is your line of work, and maybe you can explain a little bit more what a doula such as yourself offers families in any kind of situations as their loved ones progress.
Thank you very much for bringing that up.
Mhm.
So, services that I provide include advocating for the dying person's final wishes. So, that also means that I need to know their final wishes. So, I would come into the situation and we would make sure that their advance directive is written. Making a point of promoting forgiveness and reconciliation.
Mm,
Death is a little bit more difficult in what I have observed as a hospice nurse and an end of life doula. Death is has an edge to it
mm,
when forgiveness and reconciliation hasn't happened.
mm,
And and it's not a comfortable passing
mm.
because they still
Wow.
feel like there's work that needs to be done that they couldn't get done. I assist with getting resources, including hospice, burial options, and caregiver support. I work with finding legacy work.
Mm,
So, people, no offense to the world, and hope nobody takes this wrong, but they're whitewashing our history, guys.
mm,
We can't afford that. We need our history known. And if it's the grassroots people that are writing it down in their own books, in their own words, that might be all we have to say of
mm,
a situation. We
mm.
need to get this stuff written down,
Love
and our
that.
children need to know about it. Um, I can work with vigil planning, eulogies, and obituaries. So the vigil is that time between when the person stops talking and when the person dies. So they're still able to hear everything that's going on. They can feel, but they can't communicate to you
Mm,
what that feeling is. So there's a way of assessing pain in people that can't speak any longer. And I can help with that so that we make sure that they stay comfortable. Hospice would be the one that prescribes the meds, and the family would be the one that gives the meds. In my doula practice, I don't give the meds, but I do a lot of medication teaching to tell you why you want to give them and how important they are for your loved one. I can provide respite for exhausted caregivers,
mm,
especially when we get into a situation where there's only one caregiver. She's doing it all alone, the
mm,
wife or
mm.
the husband that's doing all this work, and they're, on call 24/7, 7 days a week, and they just are
Yeah,
exhausted
yeah.
and they need a break. And I can be the one that sits with the patient while they're gone so that they feel comfortable to know that someone's at the bedside that knows their person
Hmm.
and is caring for them well. Um, like I said, the education is a big, big deal. If knowing what some of these words mean and how important it is to know what to do about the medicine and how important it is or isn't when it comes to feeding. There comes a time in the dying process that a person doesn't need to eat anymore. And people can force food,
Mm,
and the person ends up aspirating on it and bringing
mm,
on a quicker, more painful death,
mm.
because they've been forced to eat when their body didn't need it anymore. Um, Talk about the stages and what to expect as the dying process progresses. Providing support and guidance regarding the grieving process. There's anticipatory grief going on from the minute I come into a situation
Well, I bet. I
because
bet.
somebody in this circle is going to die. And let's support the family as they get prepared for that
Hmm.
and be there to support them after. And I've been trained to be able to do that.
Wow.
Um, And then I'm available to do free community education or gathering education for if you're with Catholic Daughters, if you're with um, Toastmasters. No, not Toastmasters, that wouldn't work. But some of the other organizations for women, um, I can go to an organization and give talks about how important these things are
Mm,
and help
wow.
them to learn about any part of the process that they'd like to know.
And as you said, there is a process. There's so many parts, and every family, every situation is going to be different, I'm sure.
Totally,
So I
totally
appreciate
different.
that you have all of this whole list of options and things that you can serve that family, that person with. Like I never would have thought of legacy work.
Yeah,
I wrote down a bunch of stuff like family support. So you're there for the patient, we shall call the person
right,
passing, but I think you're probably mostly there for the family support.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the resources is huge. I
Yeah.
remember being in a situation like that. I had no clue where to go, who to turn to, what was available,
Yeah.
because if you're not asking the right questions of the right people, you don't get the information.
Well, and if you don't even know what the questions
Mm,
are, let alone finding the right people to ask
correct,
them of,
correct.
if you
Yep.
don't know what the questions are, I know what the questions are, so I can help you before you even know it's an issue.
Hmm. Yeah.
And that's what I like them a lot about my job.
And I love that you will know what is appropriate for this person who's in this process of passing over, like the feeding and like,
Yeah.
even though everybody wants the life to be sustained, you're just saying it's going to complicate things. So
Mhm.
don't even bother. Like
Well,
that would
people
not
will
be
say,
something I would think of.
you know, pe personally, so when I was a baby nurse, I wanted that feeding tube. I don't like to be hungry. Well, come to find out, in the dying process, the body decides that it's not hungry anymore.
Mm,
So you don't hear a stomach growling ever
hmm.
during end of life. And they haven't eaten for days and days, but there is no growling stomach to say that they're hungry.
Right. And that makes
That's
sense.
taken
Yeah,
away because the
exactly.
body's shut down. That
Hmm.
becomes what the body starts at the feet and works its way up. And so the
Mm,
gut becomes one of those areas. It needs a lot of circulation, the gut does. And if your heart is pumping for the important things, your lungs and your head and the
hmm.
heart itself, it's not going to worry about what's going on with the gut.
Right, right. There's more
You turn
important
that
things
one
to worry
off.
about.
Yeah,
But I love that you are an advocate, an intermediary, I guess we could say,
yeah,
between the medical people, especially as a nurse, you know what's going on, and
yeah,
the family and the person going through that dying process who are not familiar with this stuff.
right.
You can advocate for or against,
Mhm.
again, give your professional opinion on what's
So,
happening and just bring some clarity to the whole
right.
situation.
I I'm allowed to bring the clarity, but I'm not allowed to make the decision.
Mm,
You
mm,
get to make whatever decision is right for you. If you want to feed that person, and they call it comfort feeding, it's
mhm,
allowed. It has consequences. And so long as you know what the consequences are, if you insist that that person would want that ice cream or that whatever,
mhm.
you know, go ahead. But
And
I've
I,
told you what the consequences can
right,
be.
right. So you're giving information, you're providing information. They make the
It's
choices
right.
based on
And I have
that
no
information.
judgment with what choice you make.
Mm, I
That's
love that.
all up to you. Yeah.
No judgment is
Right.
important.
That's a
Uh,
very, very important thing for the whole process.
right.
If I have, so I had a woman that said, I don't want such and so son at my bedside.
Mm,
And it was my responsibility to make sure that he did not come to the bedside.
mm,
Um, and I understood where she was coming from, so it wasn't that difficult to do. In the end, they were able to work things out and they were able to talk more than they'd
mm,
talked in quite a while.
mhm,
And so that I was very, very happy to hear about
mm.
that. Um,
Now, I've heard situations where the person who is passing in that whole end of life process hangs on until somebody comes in from out of town or wherever, or they hang on because they don't want to disappoint or they're hanging on for the family, I guess, is what
yeah.
I'm saying.
So I go into this patient's room and she's breathing very, very slowly, like 5 breaths in a minute. That doesn't sustain life,
Hmm.
ladies. It doesn't sustain life.
Right.
So the 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 facility person comes in and says, the family wants to know when they should come. And I said, can I talk to the family? And so they said, sure, we'll call her right away. So we call the family, and I have the family on the phone. The daughter, it was a daughter, and she was in Florida. I said, this is hard for me to say, but things don't look good. Your mom could pass very soon. You need to get here.
Hmm.
And she said to me, tell my mom I'm on my way. And I said, I want you to tell your mom that you're
Hmm.
on the way. So I put the phone to her head, and she said to her mom, Mom, I'm on my way. I'll be there as soon as I can. The mom smiled.
Hmm.
The mom stayed until the daughter got there. And for 5 more days after,
Wow.
I was not expecting that at
Mm.
all. But
Wow.
everybody came
Mm.
because she was there for those 5 days.
Wow.
Everybody came.
Wow.
And that hadn't been the case prior to that phone call.
Mm.
Um,
Mm.
Now,
That's
my
good.
husband, I expected him to hang on until his dad got there. Well, now his dad's in the Netherlands. They
Mm.
got on the plane. They did all the stuff that they were supposed to. It's a 24-hour flight
Wow.
to get, with all the when you leave and when time
Mm-hmm.
changes and all
Mm-hmm.
that kind of stuff. And no, he didn't hang on.
No.
And and I understand it, but I don't,
Mm.
you know.
Well, what that person who is transitioning, what their, like you just said, this woman somehow sustained herself by
Right.
sheer willpower to
Yeah.
stay, but yet your husband, for whatever reason, chose not to.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm. Wow.
Um,
So, like I said, every situation is different,
Oh,
every
yeah.
family is different, every
Hmm.
just so many layers upon layers
Yeah.
that are happening at this point in time. And you can't even, at least I'm talking myself, I can't
Right.
even guess how I will be in those situations.
Well, and the other thing is, you only get one chance to do it right.
Mm,
So if you haven't prepared for it, the chances of it being right for everybody are slim to none.
that's a very good point. Very good point.
You know, my
Mm,
mom told me that she was going out of her house in a pine box.
I've heard
And I
that.
said, Mom, pine boxes are pretty darn reasonable. She went out 2 weeks later and bought her own casket. They had all their arrangements made, but she hadn't picked out a casket. And when I
Mm.
told her that those pine boxes were pretty reasonable, no, she didn't want that pine box after all.
Well, and I so appreciate when people in that situation take their power and make their own personal decisions
Mhm.
instead of leaving it up to everybody else. I remember my grandfather when he was near the end of life. This was, years and years and years and years ago. He was like, I don't care what happens. I'm not going to be here.
Mhm.
And I just felt that was so selfish.
Yeah,
Like so
yeah,
self-centered. You're just gonna let the family worry about it because you don't have to because you're not going to be here. I mean,
right.
if you want to think that way, that's fine.
But
But
that,
think
so
about the impact of that decision.
so I had a potential client that wouldn't sign up, wouldn't sign up, wouldn't sign up. The family, the parents didn't want to talk about it. We have nothing to say about
Yeah.
this. It's
Yeah.
all in your hands. Do whatever you
Mm.
want. Well, so she dies and there's nowhere to take her because no arrangements have been made. Well, if you're calling for an as need appointment, to get all of this stuff,
Done, right.
your cost goes up.
Mm-hmm.
And the emotion that's going on drives the cost
Mm-hmm.
just that much higher.
Yeah. Yeah.
And why do that to your family? You know?
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah,
Yeah. This is such important information, such an important discussion. And I hope everybody is impacted in some way, even if you just do one little piece of this,
mhm,
you know, and just one, even just thinking about it. Oh man, like I'm thinking, like, oh, I need to connect with my daughters and revisit this discussion
right.
is for themselves and for me and my husband because we don't get out of this life alive, but
Mhm,
we are so dismissive of that. We don't want to think about it. We don't want to talk about it. I remember when I approached my mom and dad initially about it, like it was really uncomfortable. I was really nervous about it, but we did it and we worked it out and we pre-planned and everything. Thank God, because like within a couple of years, we needed that
right.
stuff in place. And we don't, like, nobody teaches us this stuff, as we said, unless you're asking or you're seeing
Yeah.
something like this, or it happens to somebody you know, and then you start to think about this.
Right.
But,
Well, that the commercial for Colonial Penn, that whole thing, oh, he didn't have any life
mm,
insurance,
right.
they're saying this at the funeral.
Hmm.
Well, yeah, that's something unfortunately that needed to be taken care of years ago.
So I so appreciate you bringing this to our audience.
Thank
And
you.
I know they're going to want to get a hold of you. So just quickly, how can they get a hold of you? Although we will put that in the description with this conversation.
So, my email address is guidingyourlight99 at gmail.com. And that's probably the quickest way. I do have a website that I'll give Teresa. I'm on LinkedIn. Um, yeah.
Yeah, I did not know anything about a doula until I met
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
So now I'm like, yeah, we all need one of
You
those.
know what's so funny, Teresa? So here it is, the day before the funeral. And I've planned this whole funeral. I've done the whole thing. And the day before the funeral, I go, shit, I wish I had a doula. And I have a bunch of them I could
I'm
have
sure you
called
have
for
friends
help.
and
And
yes.
you know, yeah,
Peers that are in the same field and you and that's another thing. Sometimes we don't reach out to people. We think it all needs to be taken care of alone by ourselves with siblings, and you don't have to do it in a
right.
vacuum.
And I'll tell you what, folks, I took and made a list of all those people that told me, call me if you need anything.
Mm,
So that I have a list of people to call on those days that I've got to get out of the house and I can't do it alone.
love that.
Um, Yeah, it can be something as simple as I just need to get out of, I'm hungry and I don't know what
Hmm.
to eat. We go through days like that as we're grieving,
I
you
love that.
know? I have food in the house. I don't know what to do with it right
Because you're not thinking clearly. Yeah.
now. Right. Oh,
I
oh,
love that. I
yeah.
love that when people say if there's anything I can do, you're like, I'm going to take you up on that.
Well, and the same goes for the caregiver. If a caregiver, so one of my friends taught me this. She would keep in her back pocket on a laminated um, card.
Like an index card or
Yeah,
something like that.
index
Yep.
card. That's the word I wanted. See, can't find these words right now. Um, on a laminated index card, she would make a list of the things that she routinely needed. And
Mm.
they would offer to help, and she would say, what on this list is your specialty?
Oh, I love that.
Please, please cover that for me.
Mm.
You know,
Wow.
and for a caregiver, when they're so overwhelmed that they don't even remember their name, they're so worried about their person,
Hmm.
that's a lifesaver. That's a
Wow.
rope.
Yeah, and I know you
Thank God.
advocate for caregivers as well.
Oh yeah.
That's a hard role to be in.
Yeah.
And I so applaud and honor anybody who can be in that role.
Yeah.
So knowing that there is someone as a caregiver,
Yeah.
like yourself, a doula that can help me as a caregiver wade through everything proactively would be a huge relief to me.
And especially because when you people will say, well, hospice is there. Well, sure, hospice is
Mm-hmm.
there for a half an hour every day.
Mm-hmm. If
And
that,
that's
yeah.
it.
Yeah.
And so the other 98% of the time, it's you.
Mm-hmm.
And unless you've got the support that you need, that can be very draining.
Yes,
And
draining. That's
caregivers, especially if it's going on for a long time,
mm-hmm.
caregivers can put their own health needs aside
I was just gonna
because
say
they're
that.
taking care of someone. There's a 30% chance of death to a caregiver that dies before their person they're caring
Wow,
for.
that's huge.
That's a big number.
And I have heard of caregivers' health deteriorating because of so much they're putting into the person they're caring for.
Yeah.
And that, it's the whole take care of yourself, put on your oxygen mask first, pour into
And
yourself so that you can pour into others. And not everybody listens to that or pays attention
it's
to that.
easier said than done. You
Exactly.
can say
Exactly.
it, but being in the situation, it is difficult, but there is help. And there
Mm,
are a lot of caregiver support groups, especially if it's a cancer diagnosis. The cancer caregiver support group is really, really good. And your local hospice usually has a grief support for you don't even have to have been involved with that hospice or use
mm.
hospice at all, but they still give the community full access to grief support.
Oh, another thing I did not know. So
Yeah.
you are definitely a wealth of information and resources. So,
Thank
those of you watching this important conversation, please share this episode with others who need to hear this information. Veronica, I so honor you for being out there doing this work, and you just came through your own experience.
Yeah.
So you have experience from both ends, and you're just a jewel to be able to, as a lifeline. I see you as a lifeline to
Mm.
somebody who's going through this. So I thank you so much for being here and bringing this to everybody's attention. I hope everybody who's listening will reach out to you and see what you could do for them, even if it's just pointing them in the right direction.
I can be a teledoula. I was trained in that because I went to school during the pandemic.
Mm,
So if you don't have a doula in your area, I can still help.
mm,
With all the amazing technology that we have now, I
yes.
can still make a difference.
Great. Thank you so much for that. So thank you everybody who's listening. Veronica, thank you so much again for being here, what you've shared, and what you're doing out in the world.
I
So
wouldn't be here without you, Teresa, and
much love to you, my
uh,
friend. So thank you. We will see everybody on the next episode. Veronica,
Thanks
bye-bye.
for joining me today on Evolving Women. If this conversation stirred something in you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with a woman who's ready to rise. And if you haven't yet, please hit the subscribe button so you don't miss next week's story of reinvention. Your next chapter is calling, and you don't have to answer it alone.
revolves
Behind
around
this.
their religious practices. That's
Hmm.
especially a no judgment zone.
Hmm.
You know, they need to have what they need for their practice.
Right.
And that's important to them. And
Hmm.
there's no way I'm judging them for that or standing in the way of how that works. And
And the whole family dynamics thing. Like
oh,
You
Yeah,
can't judge any decisions
right.
because you don't know what happened prior to that, you know.
Yeah,
Like I said,
you
there's
have
just so many
no idea.
layers
Yeah,
and
yeah,
nuances and yeah.